Story: The man behind me. When I was 15, I had my first girlfriend. We lived in an upper-class neighborhood, the kind with quiet, peaceful streets and well-trimmed bushes lining every sidewalk. My girlfriend, Casey, lived just 2 blocks away, which meant I could walk to her house almost every night. It was the kind of young love you only experience once, simple and full of little moments. One Thursday night during school break, I had nothing to do. Out of habit, I decided to walk over to Casey's place. It was already late, but since I didn't have a strict curfew, I wasn't worried. The streets were especially still that night, and I welcomed the calm at first. Not long into my walk, I started to get the strange feeling that I wasn't alone. At first, it was just a sound, the rustling of a bush behind me. I turned my head slightly to glance over my shoulder, but didn't stop walking. I saw nothing, told myself it was probably just the wind, and picked up my pace just a bit. Then, as I reached the next block, I heard another sound, the sharp crack of a small branch or twig being stepped on. This time, I stopped completely and turned around. The street was empty. The bushes along the property lines swayed slightly in the breeze, but no one was there. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I began walking faster. Casey's house was only a minute or 2 away, and I reassured myself that I'd be safe once I got there. But then came another sound, light, quick footsteps. Closer now. I turned again while still walking. No one. Nothing. But my nerves were on fire. I pulled out my phone and called Casey. She answered right away. I told her how creeped out I was, how I kept hearing noises behind me. I walked past the bushes lining her driveway and stepped onto her front lawn. Then I saw her standing in her bedroom window upstairs, holding the phone to her ear, waving down at me. But then she stopped waving and asked, her voice suddenly sharp, "Who's that guy right behind you?" I froze. I turned around. There, maybe 10 feet behind me, was a fully grown man crouched, silently following me like a predator stalking its prey. I screamed and sprinted toward the front door, pounding on it frantically. Before I could react, the man grabbed me from behind, trying to pull me into a headlock. I thrashed, terrified. But then, just as suddenly, he let go and took off running into the darkness. Casey's mom threw the door open, her face pale with shock. She yanked me inside and slammed the door behind me. Casey came running down the stairs as I stood there, breathless, heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. Her mom hugged me tightly, trying to calm me down. After I managed to explain what had happened, she called the police. She warned them that there was a dangerous man roaming the neighborhood. That night, she let me stay over. I didn't sleep much, and I don't think she did either. The next morning, she insisted on driving me home herself. After that night, I never walked alone in the dark again. Story: The voice in the basement. I was just a little kid when this happened, maybe 6 or 7 years old. It was a quiet night, and I was in the living room, fully absorbed in my favorite cartoon. The TV was up loud, just the way I liked it, drowning out everything else in the house. Then I heard it, faint but clear, my mom calling my name. It was coming from the basement. I turned my head and yelled back, "What?" But there was no response. I waited a moment, then shrugged. Maybe she couldn't hear me, but then I heard it again. The same tone, the same voice calling my name from below. So I got up, muted the TV, and walked toward the basement door. Everything felt normal, but something about the stillness of the house made me uneasy. I opened the door and started down the steps. The basement was pitch black. I paused halfway down, my hand gripping the railing tightly. "Mom!" I called. No answer. I stood there for a moment, staring into the darkness. I couldn't see a thing down there, but one thing was certain: she wasn't in the basement. I hadn't heard footsteps. No light was on. It didn't make sense. I slowly started to back up the stairs, and then I heard it again. This time, louder, my mother's voice calling me from the basement, just like before. Only now it didn't sound right. It sounded too perfect, too calm, like someone trying to sound like my mom. I froze at the top step, heart pounding. I turned on the basement light, hoping it would make the fear go away. The bulbs flickered to life, casting pale yellow light across the room below. I crept a few steps down again, peeking around the corner. No one was there. That was all I could take. I bolted back upstairs, almost in tears, yelling for my mom. She came rushing down from upstairs, confused and concerned. Between shaky breaths, I told her someone had been calling me from the basement, and it had sounded exactly like her. She hugged me and said gently, "Honey, I never called you. I haven't been downstairs all night." She even went down to check, just to calm me down. But I didn't feel calm. I knew what I'd heard. And to this day, I still believe whatever it was in that basement, it wasn't my mother. Story, The Stranger in the Woods. My grandpa told me this story not long ago, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since. He lives about 2 hours from us, way out on a quiet stretch of farmland where neighbors are distant and the woods press close against the back of the property. It's a peaceful life mostly. He and his wife marry and have a routine. Every morning, marry and walks their little Boston Terrier, Sherry. Every evening, Grandpa takes over. Sherry isn't just a pet to him, she's named after a friend of his who passed away years ago, and the two of them are practically inseparable. It was during one of those evening walks around sunset that something happened. Grandpa was strolling down their usual dirt path, a trail that ran along the edge of the woods. It was quiet, the kind of quiet you only get in the countryside, where the only sounds are crunching leaves and distant birdsong. Then he saw someone. A man was walking toward him on the path, head down, a large hood pulled over his face. Sherry tensed immediately, letting out a few warning barks and pulling at the leash. As the stranger passed, Grandpa gave a polite good evening. The man didn't even look at him. He just walked straight past like Grandpa wasn't even there. That was the first red flag. Sherry kept looking over her shoulder, letting out small, uneasy growls. Grandpa thought she was just being overly alert, maybe the man had spooked her. But she didn't stop. Every few steps, she'd turn and bark again. Eventually, Grandpa decided to turn and look. What he saw sent a chill through his spine. The same man, the one who'd walked by minutes earlier, was now behind a tree, watching him. He hadn't taken a different trail. He hadn't looped back. He'd been following them. Grandpa, being no stranger to living out in the sticks, knew to be prepared. At his age, he always carries a small canister of pepper spray in the inside pocket of his coat, just in case. He picked up his pace. The house was just up ahead, past a small bend in the trail. He was maybe 2 minutes away from safety. That's when he heard it, the sound of leaves crunching. Not far behind, getting closer. Before he could turn around, he felt something clamp over his mouth and nose, gloved, warm, firm. He couldn't breathe, couldn't scream, but Sherry could. She barked wildly, lunging and snapping at the man. Grandpa says he could feel the man's grip falter just enough for him to dig into his coat pocket. With trembling hands, he grabbed the pepper spray and fired once, twice, then again and again. He didn't stop at 2. He sprayed at least 10 times, even after the man let go and stumbled back, screaming and clawing at his face. Grandpa didn't wait to see what happened next. He turned and made the fastest escape his old legs could manage, Sherry running alongside him. He burst through the back door, locked it, and called Mary in. She found him sitting at the kitchen table, still catching his breath. And to this day, he still takes Sherry for walks at sunset. But now, he carries more than just pepper spray. Story, The House with the Head. I spent the first 14 years of my life growing up in California. The neighborhood we lived in wasn't exactly great. In fact, it had a reputation for being dangerous. One of the reasons was that it was a known area where the Crips, one of the most notorious street gangs in Los Angeles, were active. It was the kind of place where you learn to keep your head down, stay aware of your surroundings, and mind your business. Still, when you're a kid, danger doesn't always feel real. My best friend Stevie, or Stevie D, as we all called him, lived just 2 doors down. We were inseparable. Sure, we had other friends, but most days it was just the 2 of us riding our bikes around town, playing video games, doing the kind of dumb stuff 12-year-old boys do. One night, Stevie and I were out biking after dark. We had nowhere specific to be, so we were just wandering. That's when we passed by the old abandoned house. It had been empty for as long as I could remember. Everyone in the neighborhood avoided it. Some people said it was haunted, others said it was cursed. But the most common explanation, no one wanted to buy it because they were afraid of who might have lived there or who might still be using it. "Let's check it out," Stevie said. I laughed. "You're serious?" He pointed toward the second floor window. "Look." I squinted and rode my bike a little closer, focusing on where he was pointing. Sure enough, there was a face someone was peeking through the curtain. It was pale, still, eyes staring blankly down at us. I couldn't tell if it was a real person or not, but it definitely looked like a human face. We stared for longer than we probably should have. And as we did, something started to bother me. The face never moved. Not once. Not even a blink. "It's probably just a Halloween decoration," Stevie said. That made sense, right? Someone must have broken in and put it there as a joke. But then again, who would bother doing that in a place like this? We were dumb, curious, reckless, the kind of kids who thought they were invincible. We hid our bikes behind some overgrown bushes on the side of the house and snuck around to the back. The door was unlocked, which should have been a warning sign, but we just looked at each other, grinned, and went inside. The house was silent. No power. The air inside was musty and heavy. We didn't dare turn on any lights, assuming there were even working ones, because we didn't want anyone to know we were in there. It was dark, but not pitch black. Enough moonlight crept through the windows that we could still see. We made our way to the living room where we had seen the face. And that's when the smell hit us. It was the stench of something rotting, sharp and sour. It instantly made my stomach turn. Stevie covered his nose and gagged. "What is that?" "I don't know," I said, but I was already starting to feel sick. We approached the window. The head was still there, propped up on the windowsill like it had been placed for display. I reached out, hesitated, and then for some reason I'll never understand, I picked it up. And I immediately dropped it. Not because it was heavy, not because it startled me, but because it felt real. The texture of the skin wasn't plastic or foam. It was warm and soft. And from the bottom of the head, something began to drip a thick, dark liquid. Blood. I screamed and jumped back as it hit the floor with a wet thud. Stevie backed into the wall, eyes wide. "That's not a fake head," I said, my voice shaking. Then we heard it, two distinct cracks in the ceiling above us. Like footsteps. We froze. Someone was upstairs. Someone who might have heard us come in. Stevie didn't wait. He turned and ran for the back door, and I followed, my legs moving before my brain could catch up. We burst out of the house, grabbed our bikes, and pedaled as fast as we could, hearts pounding, lungs burning. We didn't stop until we were blocks away. Word got out fast. The police showed up later that night. It turned out the head belonged to a man who had gone missing a few days earlier, a suspected victim of gang violence. Everyone assumed the Crips had done it, leaving the head there as some kind of brutal message. What disturbed me most wasn't just what we found, but the fact that we heard someone moving upstairs, which meant whoever put the head there might have still been in the house while we were inside. To this day, I don't know how close we came to becoming victims ourselves, but I do know this: I never went near that house again.